It has been said that average people want you to stay average. Welcome to the Breaking Average podcast, the podcast designed to challenge you to break the mold that average has on the world. Each episode offers insights directly from those who choose to break average every day. Now, for the latest insights, here are your hosts, Paul Gustafson and Rick Morris.
All right, guys, I'm here with Rick Morris. I'm so excited. We have had such phenomenal seasons with the Breaking Average podcast, and we're about to launch our season 3. And Rick, it's been such a joy to do this with you, and I am pumped. And we got a little shape up in terms of who we are, what we're doing. Mike has got a busy season ahead, so he's going to be joining us as a guest here and there. But you are now the co-anchor on this thing, and I'm so excited, man.
I got promoted? I've been promoted? All right.
So how are you doing, my friend?
Doing good. I think the biggest question with Mike not being the host is who's going to pick on me? You're going to have to take that role on.
Yeah,
I'm losing my big brother.
I can do that. Now, I can't pick on you like Mike can. I mean, Mike picks on everybody, right? But in a fun way. He's such a, Mike, we're going to miss you, but we're glad that you're going to be a guest, reappearing here and there. And we just wish you the best. And you got a busy season ahead of you. And but just so thankful for everything that you've done in terms of your contributions the last 2 seasons. Rick, you and I are going to have some fun. We've got, we don't always like the same sports team, so we'll have fun with that, I'm sure. And we got different perspectives on some of these things, which is really kind of cool. And we need that. That's why we do this. We didn't want a monologue for a Breaking Average podcast. We wanted a dialogue. And that's what Rick and I are going to do with each other. And the fact that you're wearing an Italian soccer jersey, I just can't. What?
Yeah. Well, Italian culture is where I come from, but it loved the team. And of course, they were champions as well.
That's right.
The UEFA in PKs. But what I've enjoyed about this podcast, I did kind of a monologue type of a podcast for 5 years. And what I needed was what I found in this podcast is the different energies. We bring different energies and different thought patterns to the same type of problem. And I feel like balance each other out really, really well. So I'm excited for the season ahead.
Yeah, it's always fun to get together. I mean, you and I met at an IMC. Gosh, when was that? It was a John Maxwell event, international.
It was my second one that I met you at. So it was 2015.
Yeah, so it was a little bit back, and we just connected right away. And we've wandered the hallways of the Marriott there, and we're going to get a chance to spend some time together here shortly. So that'll be fun. And so whether it's across the glass and being able to connect, Rick is in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm here in Virginia, Fredericksburg. Actually, my phone tells me that I'm not actually in Fredericksburg, Virginia. My phone says I live in George Washington, Virginia.
Wow.
I never even knew that. So
I didn't know there was a George Washington, Virginia.
I didn't know that either, but apparently that's where I'm at. I'm in George Washington, Virginia. Yes, George Washington grew up here. He chopped down the cherry tree, allegedly, right down the road from me. But it's just a historic area. But so is Birmingham. I mean, so we've got history in the parts of the world that we're at. But we've got some cool things that we're bringing to the table for season 3, right? You want to highlight just a couple of those things?
Yeah, even kicking it off, or talk about the value of failure, which being an agile mindset type of people that we both are, and we've discussed on the podcast previously. But the ability to fail forward is something I feel like is been attributable to my career, and taking those lessons and learning, and it's manifested itself into my style of leadership is to allow failure to exist. And so excited to talk about that. We've got a new series coming up too around kind of dovetailing a little bit of what we did with the movies.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to do 64 because there's no way we could do it, but we are going to have the debate of what are some of the best leadership books out there. And we've got some really cool criteria. One of the big ones is it has to stand the test of time. It can't be just the latest fad. it's got to be a book that's been out there for a while. So excited to go through those, and really cool ideas on how to get you, the listeners, and the audience involved in voting. So it's not just going to be our opinion this time. The audience is really going to have an opportunity to help shape that.
Yeah, that's an exciting part about this, guys. We wouldn't be a podcast if it wasn't for you. So we appreciate you and value you. And so when we any of our podcasts, we invite you to be a part of our just commenting on it or providing feedback on that, certainly sharing it. You know, we do the YouTube videos as well as, you know, Rick's posting all these things on all the different channels. So wherever you listen to your podcast, we're there. We're excited to do that, but we really want to hear from you. So we'll get some cool polls out there. We're on the social media, obviously, and you're watching this probably through a social media feed as it is, but we're excited because the feedback that we get from you really kind of dovetails into our conversations. So as we go through the books, you know, the Book to Lead series that we're going to talk about, and that's going to be phenomenal. So you don't want to miss any of those Book to Lead series when we do that, because here's the reality. We all gain value from books. There's a lot of, Rick's written a couple books, I've done as well. Rick, I mean, as authors, we pour ourselves into that work, right?
Oh, it's exhausting. It really is. But you labor over every word, and then you have people who just chop it up after that, and then you have people that go, "Well, I don't like this." You're like, "What? That was months. That was months of work." But yeah, you put a lot of heart and soul into it.
And when it comes together, you know, it's a really satisfying piece as an author to see your work finally done. But it represents quite a bit of work. It's a lot of knowledge and a lot of insights, a lot of experience that's been evaluated and shared with the reader. And so what we want to do is we want to honor those authors. We want to honor you by providing some really great insight into those books. So yeah, you know, it's not quite exactly reading the book, but the way we mastermind this book, it's going to be pretty phenomenal. You're going to enjoy it. We're going to pull the best bits out of the book as we read it, as we share it, as we unpack it. And it's all about application, guys. It's not just the stories. Yeah, they're cool. There's some great ones in the books that we're going to select, but it's also really, truly about making an impact and adding value to you. So you don't want to miss it. That's going to be very practical. You're going to get some great wisdom from that, and proper attribution to those authors and their sources too. So we want to make sure we do that. But I'm excited about that series. And the one that we're going to do after the value of failure is The Power of Wooden. That's going to be fun, huh?
It's going to be fantastic. You know, coming back to the books for just a second, what's interesting is most of our audience is readers. I know they are, and we tend to read so often, but we sometimes don't tend to go back and revisit some of these classics. Yeah. And you know, I was sharing with this story with you earlier, Paul, where you know there was a book that was very, very monumental to my career, but I didn't realize how much of an impact it had on my career until I read it again 20 years later. And was just like, oh my goodness, right? So sometimes you hear things at the moment you need to hear them, and you pick something out of a book because it's speaking to you in that moment, but then you've grown. Yeah. So does it last the test of time? Is it the same? Does it hit the same as it did before? And what's that new nugget that you've read it? It was there, but you weren't ready to hear it. And that's the kind of stuff I'm excited about to go unpack. Like you weren't in that spot where you were open or didn't have the experience, whatever that may be, right? But all of a sudden it just hits different. And that's what excites me about this series.
Yeah, and it's going to create opportunity for all our listeners and viewers too to share a little bit of their stories, the moments of insight that took place for you, perhaps as you read that book. So we're going to try to share ours, as Rick just mentioned, but we want to hear from you too, because there are some of those moments. I can think of some books, just as you mentioned, Rick, where I picked it up afterwards and I went back through it. And I'm like, wow, that changed the vector for me personally. That changed the vector for me and what I was doing operationally in the business, right? There's tactics and strategy. Tactics are what we do on the day in, day out. It's kind of the present state. And then there's strategy. And books have helped me in both areas, both tactics and strategy. And we need that sometimes, you know? So that's going to be fun. But The Power of Wooden, John Wooden, That's going to be a lot of fun. So as I was kind of sharing, and we were talking before we recorded, I was like, wow, some of these principles from Wooden, pretty significant.
So, well, and when you have that level of success, right?
Yeah.
Another one I just read was 10 Rings, right? It's Phil Jackson's book.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that, Phil wasn't that great of a coach because, he had Jordan and Pippen, and then he had Kobe and Shaq, but trying to get those pieces, these superstars to fit together. Because you've seen some of these mega teams that can't do it, right? They've got the star power, they just can't get it together.
Yeah.
But Wooden had it's almost a modest style, right? He just knew what worked. You don't get to that level of success if you don't just have brilliant ways of touching and reaching people. And I think it gets a lot of credit sometimes in sports circles and that kind of thing, but to really invest in what he said in some of his principles, I think would benefit any person.
Yeah. And it's actually great timing for us to do it right after our value of failure, because Wooden himself, people think he's had nothing but success, but the truth of it is that Wooden had to go through failure himself to find success. So the setup that we have, I think, is going to be great for season 3, the value of failure, the power of Wooden, and then the books I almost said books to read. It's the books to lead that we're going to go through. That series is going to be phenomenal. Can't wait to mastermind this with you, Rick. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, hey, to close out, we always do a tip and challenge, and I'm putting you on the spot and putting myself on the spot here. But we'll just have some fun, man. What's a tip and challenge that you want to leave everybody with today?
Well, the tip would be to subscribe so that you don't miss any of these book to leads, and subscribe to however you're seeing this. Follow us on whatever you're seeing right now, if it's on YouTube or it's on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the challenge is going to be to prepare. Like we're gonna bring the books out. You're going to have an opportunity to see the books in advance and kind of read them and follow along with us as well. But if you don't have time to do that, this is going to be a great way to get some snippets as well and get some of the value of these books just through listening to the podcast. So that's my tip and challenge.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So my tip for everybody here, it's kind of interesting. I was preparing this morning and I was realizing I didn't have all my stuff together. Sometimes that happens, right, Rick?
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know how many other folks have experienced that, where you just don't have everything together. And I was just kind of going through a little mopey. Sometimes that happens to me, especially early in the morning. But then there's a sign that my wife got a few years ago that says there's always, always, always something to be thankful for. And I needed that right at the right moment. I saw that. I'm like, you know what? There is. I'm so thankful. I'm thankful for my family, of course. I'm thankful for so many things. I started listing it out. And I'm thankful for you, Rick. I'm thankful for this podcast. I'm thankful that we get to do this and be able to add and share value to others. And I just want to challenge everybody else. What are you thankful for? There's always, always something to be thankful for. So that's my tip and challenge.
That's awesome, buddy. That's awesome. Yeah. Whether it's gratitude journals or whatever it is, but we actually said this earlier when we were talking as well. We don't have to do a podcast. We get to do a podcast. We don't have to go to work. We get to go to work. We don't have to go to the store with the kids. We get to go to the store with the kids. It just that one little word switch, I think can really bring that gratitude and thankfulness there as well.
Yep. Guys, we thank you for watching and listening, and so excited, and join us again as we keep this thing going. It's going to be great. Thanks, Rick.
See you, buddy.
All right, bye.
Thank you for listening to the Breaking Average podcast. If you loved what you heard, please take a moment to subscribe. All opinions and comments expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and do not reflect the opinions or views of any of the advertisers, producers, or platforms. This show was produced by R2 Multimedia. A special thank you to Milestone Melodies for our theme music. As you continue your day, what is one action that you can apply from this podcast to your life? Tune in for our next episode as we continue to challenge everyone to break average.